back for seconds. Trump returns to Cleveland to see his number 2 accept the nomination. Also tonight, fallen officers of Baton Rouge and the families they left behind.
The knock on the door came. That is a knock that I hope nobody ever has to endure.
Turmoil at the Fox News channel after its leader is accused of sexual harassment. And
Sunday, Monday, happy days.
Ron Howard remembers the happy days he spent with the legendary Gary Marshall.
Gary was the best boss I've ever had.
This is the CBS Evening News with Scott Pelley, reporting tonight from the Republican National Convention in Cleveland, Ohio.
This is our Western edition. Tonight, these delegates will get their first look at the ticket they have chosen to try to take back the White House 6 months from today. Vice presidential nominee Mike Pence will address this convention, and Donald Trump will join him on the podium. Here's Chief White House Correspondent Major Garrett.
Donald Trump swooped over the Cleveland skyline in a corporate helicopter for a return to the convention city and a rendezvous with running mate Mike Pence before the Indiana governor's acceptance speech tonight.
And I'm convinced what begins in Cleveland will end in the White House.
Before the helicopter came the Trump corporate jet, which flew distractingly over a Ted Cruz event.
That was pretty well orchestrated.
Trump's family met him at the landing zone, where he praised their speeches.
Kids, congratulations. Fantastic job. Thank you very much.
Not present and not mentioned, wife Melania, whose Monday speech lifted from Michelle Obama's 2008 Democratic Convention address.
Your word is your bond, that you do what you say you're going to do.
Your word is your bond, and you do what you say.
Media interest led Trump to exaggerate on Twitter today, saying Melania's was the most publicized speech in political history. From the beginning, campaign chairman Paul Manafort has dismissed the story as a non-event, pretending similarities didn't exist and Melania's speech stood on its own.
That speech that she thought was anybody's words but herself.
But today, an employee of the Trump Business Organization, Meredith McIver, said in a statement she took notes from Melania, who said she'd always liked Michelle Obama and rewrote a draft of the speech, borrowing from the First Lady. McIver said she offered to resign, but Trump turned her down. That was the fourth explanation offered in the speech saga. First, Melania told NBC she mostly wrote it herself. Then the campaign said a team of writers worked on it. Then 2 speechwriters from the George W. Bush White House said they submitted a draft that was rewritten. And finally, today's explanation. George W. Bush's chief speechwriter, Mike Gerson, said the story matters because it speaks to disorganization within Trump world.
It was a mid-level problem that turned larger because of the ineffectiveness of the campaign itself. They proved they couldn't do crisis management when it really mattered.
Outside the arena, protests resulted in at least 10 arrests as mounted police moved in on flag burning and other demonstrations just outside the security perimeter. Scott, 1 police officer suffered a minor injury, and we are told that number of arrests could well rise.
Major Garrett, thanks. Those protests have been quite a bit smaller and less violent than had been feared at the beginning. Major Garrett on the floor of the convention. You know, you may have noticed there seem to be a lot of empty seats here. This is the arena in the final half hour last night when the speakers included Dr. Ben Carson. Well, this is 4 years ago. Again, second night of the convention, last half hour, Chris Christie speaking. Here it is in 2008 when Senator Joe Lieberman addressed the convention. And in 2004, when First Lady Laura Bush was speaking. All of those stadiums held about 20,000 people. It's not just inside the arena. Turns out the crowds outside are thin, too. Here's Juliana Golden.
The few blocks around the security perimeter feel like a typical convention.
Hats, buttons, and shirts!
Vendors selling swag, restaurants crowded with delegates, media, and Republican officials.
We got a queso fundido.
But across the rest of this town, it's a different story. Several blocks away, employees at newly opened Coastal Taco say the supposed RNC economic boon has been a bust.
We've sent people home, take the night off.
Managing partner Aaron Clyde says they staffed up and extended hours, apparently unnecessarily.
What were the expectations?
High. I mean, it's going to be great. It's going to be this huge windfall. And, You know, it hasn't been. In fact, it's been a little bit of a ghost town.
Heightened security concerns and Donald Trump's controversial candidacy turned away millions of dollars in corporate sponsorship. That meant fewer parties with rented-out restaurants, less cash for businesses and employees. But a big windfall was never in the cards, according to Cleveland Host Committee CEO David Gilbert.
This is not going to plan everybody's retirement.
He says the committee expects between $200 to $250 million in direct spending.
We would love for everybody to have a banner week during the convention, but it's nothing that we have the ability to control.
Back at Coastal Taco, Clyde says he wasn't expecting the town to celebrate Trump the way it did LeBron and the Cavs at last month's NBA championship parade.
We thought it might be like a Cavs playoff game with maybe more media coming in, but it doesn't have that same feel.
Some downtown businesses decided to close because of security concerns, but with Cleveland relatively calm, a number have reopened. Scott, one of the realities of modern conventions is that all of this security really does end up acting as a barrier to the community at large.
Juliana Goldman, thanks. Live primetime coverage of the Republican National Convention begins at 7 o'clock. I'll be joined by Nora O'Donnell, Charlie Rose, Gayle King, and John Dickerson right here on CBS. In another important story, there is a dangerous heat wave baking the central United States. By Friday, it's expected to be over 100 degrees in a number of cities, 121 in Death Valley, California. Today, President Obama tweeted a warning to stay safe as it heats up. Maria Villarreal has more on this.
From Minnesota to California, record high heat is expected to linger for days. National Weather Service meteorologist Mark Jackson says it's creating a heat dome effect.
If you picture a greenhouse, sunlight comes into the greenhouse, and inside of that glass greenhouse, surfaces are warming up. But that glass does not allow that heat to go back, to leave the greenhouse. And so you're getting this, it's literally a trapping effect.
2016 is the hottest year ever recorded. Between January and June this year, temperatures were 2.4 degrees higher than in the late 19th century when they were first recorded. Around the world, Spain, France, and Germany have been sweltering in triple-digit temperatures for days. Baghdad hit 123 degrees yesterday, forcing the government to declare a holiday to keep people indoors.
It's such a massive problem, and even if we were to completely stop all carbon emissions right now, we would still have a very serious situation. We've passed the tipping point.
Jackson says hotter temperatures are causing bigger problems. This season, fires are more intense, drought conditions are growing, and the Arctic sea ice is melting sooner. Ice covers 40% less than it did in the late 1970s. This week, families are looking for any way to stay cool this summer.
My daughter doesn't want to put any clothes on, just her swimsuit.
But Jackson says rising temperatures will last way beyond the summer months.
We're shattering records. We're shattering high temperature records.
Already this summer, there have been several deaths related to the heat. Scott, that's why 16 states so far have issued heat advisories.
Maria Villarreal for us tonight. Maria, thank you. A woman in South Florida could be the first person to be infected with Zika virus by a mosquito bite in the continental United States. Health officials have been predicting that Zika would infect mosquitoes in the U.S. after spreading from South America. The woman from Miami-Dade County had not traveled outside the United States. Zika can cause severe brain defects in children born to women who are infected during pregnancy. Baton Rouge, Louisiana is preparing to bury 3 police officers gunned down last Sunday. Their murders were an apparent act of revenge for an earlier police killing. David Begnaud spoke with 2 of their widows.
Every time my husband left the house, I prayed the whole 16 days. God, keep him safe. Protect all the guys he's with and bring him back home.
Desha Gerald's husband, Matthew, was a rookie cop with the Baton Rouge Police Department. The former Marine had worked 16 days straight after protests erupted over the Alton Sterling killing.
Things were getting chaotic, and I texted him. I said, I need to see your face. Just send me a picture, please. That's the picture he sent to me.
Sunday morning, she heard the first reports about the ambush killings.
I knew in my gut that something just wasn't right. Something just wasn't. I just knew. I had a feeling.
Shortly after the shooting, there was a knock at the door.
That is the hardest thing I ever had to do in my life. My 3-year-old is watching me. And she's holding my face and she's telling me not to cry.
Good morning, my love. I love you.
Tanya Garafola got that text message from her husband Brad the morning of the shooting. An East Baton Rouge Parish Sheriff's deputy, Garafola was a 24-year veteran. She was worried about her husband, given the tensions.
You were worried that his badge and gun
would get him killed.
Brad, a father of 4, died a hero.
And he went and hid behind a dumpster so he could call for backup. And he saw the officer that had been hit trying to crawl, and he crawled back to him, and in the process, he was shot. And that he went down fighting. He returned gunfire the entire time, several times after he was hit.
He kept shooting.
He kept shooting, even when he was on the ground on his back. He kept shooting.
I know your daughter said something unforgettable.
She said, "Mommy, don't cry. Daddy's in a better place."
Deputy Garafola was supposed to leave the convenience store an hour before the shooting, but he stayed late because his wife was bringing him the family vehicle to get the oil changed. Scott, they were all supposed to leave for vacation the next day.
David Begnaud with the interviews for us tonight. David, thank you very much. Today, a federal appeals court ruled that Texas' strict voter ID law discriminates against minorities and the poor and must be reworked. This is a big win for the Obama administration, which led the fight against the Texas law. Today, Turkey's president declared a 3-month state of emergency. Last Friday, a military faction failed in a coup attempt. Video captured one man diving under a tank and emerging with only minor injuries. Holly Williams reports that a purge is now playing out on TV.
They're accused of leading the failed military coup, and now these officers are being paraded and humiliated on Turkish television. The attempt to seize power by members of Turkey's armed forces was bloody, leaving nearly 300 people dead, many of them civilians. But Turkey's leaders believe they have more enemies, so they've suspended over 21,000 staff from the Education Ministry, including school teachers, demanded resignations from over 1,500 university deans, and suspended around 8,000 police officers, along with nearly 3,000 judges and prosecutors. The scale of the crackdown has many Turks worried that they averted a coup only to see their fragile democracy crushed. To the cheers of his supporters, President Recep Tayyip Erdogan says he's ready to restore the death penalty.
President Erdogan is an Islamic conservative who, even before this failed coup, was criticised for stripping away people's democratic freedoms here in Turkey, locking up journalists, his rivals, and even those who dared to speak out against him on social media.
Turkey wants the US to extradite Fethullah Gulen, the moderate Islamic cleric it blames for the coup. The US says it needs to see the evidence first. We've learned tonight that the government is also shutting down over 500 schools, and this backlash probably isn't over yet. Scott, one of America's most important allies here in the Middle East, appears to be fighting a war against itself.
Holly Williams reporting from Istanbul. Holly, thank you. As many as 50 civilians may have been killed in a U.S. coalition airstrike in Syria. The Pentagon is investigating the bombing near Manbij. The strike was in support of rebels who are trying to retake the town from ISIS. Coming up next, the head of Fox News faces allegations of sexual harassment.
CBS News live from the Republican National Convention. Special primetime coverage.
The future of news executive Roger Ailes is in question tonight after accusation of sexual harassment at Fox News. Here's Vanita Nair.
Fox News may be the house Roger Ailes built, but he may soon be evicted, sparked by a sexual harassment lawsuit by former anchor Gretchen Carlson. She claimed she was fired for refusing his sexual advances. Yesterday, she tweeted this message.
I want to support all women who've been victims of sexual harassment.
Fox News parent company 21st Century Fox launched an internal review that is ongoing. Investigators have been interviewing employees, including current anchor Megyn Kelly. While she has declined to comment, her lawyers confirm Kelly is working fully and truthfully with investigators. Ailes' attorney, Susan Estrich, told CBS News in a statement, Roger Ailes has never sexually harassed Megyn Kelly. In fact, he has spent much of the last decade promoting and helping her to achieve the stardom she earned, for which she has repeatedly and publicly thanked him. Jim Rutenberg is a media critic with the New York Times. He spent 20 years covering Ailes.
Right now, we're in the very final stages of a contract withdrawal, basically a separation.
Before entering cable news, Ailes was a Republican political strategist, the media guru for presidents like Richard Nixon, Ronald Reagan, and George Bush. Under Ailes, Fox News became a powerhouse and #1 in the cable news market.
In my view, the loss of Roger Ailes at Fox News is something that will affect our political culture, and I really believe that in a major way.
There has been a lot of speculation about how much money Ailes could walk away with if he leaves Fox News. Some estimates are as high as $40 million. Scott?
Vanita Nair, thank you, Vanita. Coming up next, DWP, the risk of driving while playing Pokemon Go. The parents of a 2-year-old boy killed by an alligator at Disney World said today they will not sue Disney. There were no signs warning about the gator in the water. A spokeswoman for the family said she could not say whether a financial settlement had been reached. Police have been warning folks about the risks of playing Pokemon Go on their phones, and here's why. Monday in Baltimore, an SUV slammed into a patrol car. Nobody was hurt, but the driver told the cops, quote, "That's what I get for playing this dumb game." Okay. Some whale watchers in Australia missed the big moment by paying too close attention to the starboard side because on the port side, a giant humpback whale was jumping out of the water, but by the time they turned around, it was gone. And we'll be right back.
This portion of the CBS Evening News is sponsored by the Spark Cash Card from Capital One. Earn unlimited 2% cash back.
And that's the CBS Evening News from Cleveland. Our live primetime coverage of the Republican National Convention begins at 7 o'clock. We'll see you then.
What surprises could we see at the GOP's big event? CBS News original reporting. Special primetime coverage live from the Republican National Convention.